So let me share my screen. Then we can start off. Okay. Good evening. Today I will go through the third part. Actually, JavaScript, I'm condensing a lot. There is so much we can talk, uh, but I'm trying to give you what is needed and what is useful for you to get your projects up and running. And today's class will focus on a couple of things like the date, time, and the timers. Because timers are very useful when you are creating some web pages where you can see the dates coming across, or you can see how many people logged into your site. So having a timer maybe at a given interval, some event you want to trigger. And it is very good for guessing games. Like if you're using games, or if you want to set a timer and within like 5 seconds you need to answer. For example, I see some projects which are trying to do quiz programs, and these things will be very helpful. And a couple of concepts which we will go through, which is the programming, the browser, and a DOM. Like DOM is your document object model. Same way we have a BOM, which is the browser object model. So those two things we'll talk briefly about it. And whenever we say object-oriented or object models, then we will have some methods, get methods and set methods. We'll see some of them. And few examples I threw out there. You can try it out. But I uploaded this PowerPoint. You don't need to follow my screen, but you can go through that. So first thing is Java script is object oriented. And as we saw, again, I'm not sure how much I need to go into the object oriented concepts, but I'm taking for granted that you guys are already familiar with Java and using the Java, maybe a lot of objects and classes. You did the class models and then initiating those classes. So very high level objects are nothing but anything what we come across in the world. Example, car, table, etc. Like a student's table or in a database, you can call a students as an object and you can use them in your programs. Now, objects will have some properties and also we'll associate them with some methods or kind of operations which the object can perform for you. An example of a car, if there is a color for it, and if you're taking a object, a student as an object, there is a height which you can attribute, which are nothing but the properties or attributes for that particular object. Now, the methods, sometimes if you're talking about a method, as I said, that it is the process or the procedure which can initiate, and through the object you can do accomplish some of the tasks. For example, if you're driving a car, you want to go fast, there is an accelerator, which is the method of pressing the accelerator takes you faster. So those are the things which is JavaScript falls under as an object-oriented language or program. Now, as we talk about it, there is a method. The high-level methods can be defined as functions. What we saw some in our previous class. Now, functions will take parameters. We saw that too. So JavaScript is not different from any other languages coming to those methods and function calls, parameters. The one thing in Java language or JavaScripting is it is very forgiving. Like the declarations, you must have tried a couple of times, couple of things in your class test or class work. Even though you don't declare the data type, it still can think through when the first time it gets that value, it will set that as a data type. So it's slightly easy, but at the same time, with the flexibility comes the problems. Sometimes debugging is tough. Like you don't know what data type it is taking in, and you need to always make sure that you convert that. For example, if you are designing a calculator, the inputs from the users are always strings. Now you need to use the related functions so that you can actually change them into integers or floats to calculate and use them in your programs. You got stuck. Okay. So some of the objects right now will just go into the date object, because what I see and most of the web pages you will see a date coming up somewhere. For example, if you're trying to build a app using dates like start date, end dates, or anything to do with dates, uh, there is a lot of functions and methods are available for you. So date is an object, and you can initiate with a new, as you are declaring it a variable. You can say var variable name equal to new and date in parentheses. That will actually define the object date. And now date gives you the current date. And you can use all these methods what you have, say, for example, get date, get day, get month, get full year. There are plenty of them. Like I'm not putting out all of those here, but it's just an example how you can use. You can research a lot of these methods online. What date object can provide you. For example, if I define a date as a variable d, I can say d dot get date will get me the current date. And if I say d dot get day, it will give me what is the current day. Whatever the values of the date variable it saves. So we can use them in your program to display, to do calculations, and also the set methods. Like you can actually force a start date. For example, your class always starts at some XYZ date. You cannot book, or you cannot book a class timing before that. So you can actually force a start date so that along with the program, you can actually use that date. Now, timing, when it comes to time, you have different methods again, set hours, get hours. It will tell you what is the actual converts into the hour and minutes and seconds too. And also you have extensive library functions or library methods for UTCs like coordinated universal time. Uh, as this is a web programming, you are going across the world. Somebody trying to look at your web page and trying to take a, say you're building a reservation app. Uh, the reservation I can be in East Coast or West Coast or mid or maybe in Europe or in some other continent. So how do you control the time? Like what is their local time and what is the universal time? You need to come up with a standard timing convention in your apps. So the UTC commands and UTC variables and also functions will help you to achieve that. So if you see that UTC to UTC string, it will convert whatever you pass through as a string and it to a local string. So all these things, there may be some examples we can take a look at it. Otherwise, I'll upload them later. Okay, there is an example here. Uh, what we are trying to do, again, everything goes into the script. Um, okay, I'm creating a variable local time as new date, and then there is a HTML. So this is, I'm just trying to change that local time using the to UTC string. That's what I'm trying to save that into a variable HTML. Now, a couple of statements, HTML plus, whatever it is, different functions we are just trying to demonstrate. And the output, you can see this is the output. I think they ran today in the afternoon. So you can in the morning, or maybe last night, I think 6:30. Yeah, it's last night. I was just preparing the slide. So you, these things you can actually use that. Um, One example I can think of is, say if you're displaying a page where you have different countries and you have the flags of the different countries and you want to display the time in that local time in the country. You see these things very frequently on the websites. So it'll be nice to have it on the top and the banner bar, you can create the banner content, and there you can put your images, the flags, or whatever the names of the countries, and then put your local time. That gives a good look and feel for the website if you are doing global websites. The same way where you have the different methods, I'm just showing it here, set method and get method. You can actually set the dates. For example, my date, I'm setting that as a variable new date. I'm taking that as current date, but I'm setting it as a 12:00, and then I'm trying to display a few things, how it is going to display in your web browser. So try it out. Take a couple of examples. Try what makes sense for you, and then see whether you can do few problems. Again, I don't know. I can check. I can check for the chats, but I'm not going to stop the lecture and go through the chats at this point. Maybe at the end, I'll just go through the chats, or maybe somebody can talk to me if there is a important question you want to stop me. Unmute your microphone and let me know, and I'll break for you. I'll start the class for you. Okay. Now, a few things. As I said, the timer. You have two types of timers. One is a short timer and one is a continuous while. The short timer, it just waits or a delay, like you want to give us delay for a couple of seconds and then do an event. And whereas the continuously firing timers, uh, you can have clock. You can build a clock using a timer, because if you have a object, you have a variable date or time, and then you can actually start using that and continuously every 1 second update that particular clock, or every 5 minutes. Maybe you can give a 5 minute interval. Every 5 minutes, I'll update the clock. And for example, if you're running or if you're creating programs to poll, for example, stock exchange, every 5 minutes you want to get the ticker and then update the value of that particular stock. So for that, you can actually create these timers and continuous triggers, which will go after like every 5 minutes. You can set the timer and then go and bring that information back. There is a quick example. Here, the set timeout, it will wait for 3 seconds. So every second is a 1,000th of a second. So if you have 3,000, that is 3 seconds. You can run it and see what happens. It actually waits for 3 seconds before it can actually fire. This is the function what you're going to fire, or what you want to trigger. Once the page loads, it waits for 3 seconds, and then it is actually going to do this function, which is do this later, which is it's an alert coming up on the screen, say time's up. So those are the things you can start implementing in your programs or projects, which will help and which make you can control a lot of things that way. The one thing is, will come to this a little bit later. Every controller, everything on HTML has an ID. You can actually create an ID for the timer, and you can actually control it, and you can actually destroy it. Like you can say clear timeout, and you use the timer ID. That will actually stop doing that. If you set up on every 3 seconds or every 5 seconds, it's annoying. So you can actually stop it by uh, choosing the clear timeout, and you need to mention that timer ID, because here I'm setting this as my timer ID, and I'm trying to only clean up the timer ID. So these things are very helpful. Once you start playing with JavaScript, try to build some functions. I think I gave the classwork to a few functions. Those are mathematical and logical things you need to think through a little bit. I think by this time you must have solved all those three problems. Pretty straightforward. Um, that's the reason I think the functions are very important. Once you know how to initiate the function, how to pass the parameters, and how to retrieve the information, the return values, the rest is nothing but trying to figure out a equivalent command or equivalent function If it is about the date, if it is about the time, you figure out, you just go through it and see, okay, this kind of function I want or this kind of method and I can use it. So it makes it much easy if you do the functions well. Did we miss anything on this? Okay. So the one thing here I want to highlight is what is this doing? This is firing regular intervals, output time update. Okay, this is updating the time on a web page. So what it is doing is set interval update time is a function, and 1000 is nothing but 1 second. So every 1 second, it's going to go out and just document get element by ID, which is output is the div tag, inner HTML. This is one of the ways you can actually display the information onto the screen. So this is going to help you, and this we are going to discuss a little bit when we come to the DOM object or DOM model. That is one of the things. But we saw the document.write, which will do the same thing. Alert is which you display a alert box on the screen. Prompt is another thing. So these things are displaying like document dot get element by ID and dot inner HTML, because JavaScript, as we said, that it is object oriented, so you can actually go through this. You're trying to get the inner HTML, whatever is there in the HTML, and that is the class by ID, which is nothing but here you're defining. So this is a good thing, you can test it out. It's just a timer which comes on. At this point, we saw a little bit of timers and a little bit of date functions, but there are two concepts I want to introduce. One is the browser model, and one is a document model. Now, in browser model, what we do is, whatever browser you are using Internet Explorer or Safari or whatever it is. So there is a Windows object which is available for your browser model. That is the key for browser model. So the Windows, there is an object, there is a native object called Windows object, and we will manipulate a lot of things with that object. So that is your browser model. Now here is an example, the hierarchy of the browser object model. So you have the Windows object, and now under that you have different objects which you can use. Say location object, history object, document object, which is most widely used, navigation, and then screen object. So at a high level, if you see this diagram, say this is a box. So the browser window or frame is pretty much obsolete. Like nobody uses frames anymore. But in the olden browsers, you have the frames. You can actually set up the frames. So assume that this is your browser or frame, the entire outline. Now your HTML page represents the browser. Whatever is there in that is your browser. Um, it is a document object. So that is directly controlling the document object. Why we are doing this is you can use the JavaScript for a lot of manipulation on the screen, but you do have an option using the browser object, which is much faster and easier. You can do a lot of things without even writing the script. Now, the frequently used is the history and location. For example, did I miss one? Oh, okay. So history and location. So where every page, whatever the page is, like history of your browser, it's nothing but browser history. How is actually browser recording that, and how do you actually go and figure out what pages you are on? So there is a history object. So it is nothing but windows.alert. Just like what you have windows.alert, you have windows.history.go -2 is nothing but 2 pages back, whatever you used it. And if you want to see 3 pages, you are on, say, 10th or 5th page down the road and you want to go 3 pages forward. So go forward. So you can actually use those things to in your in your program. Say you want to show the browser history, you can actually use these things. Alert is one of the Windows object element. So what we used very frequently in the past. Location is it gives you the current. There is a lot of information about the page. Okay? For example, once you start getting into databases, your connection strings, which server it is hosting. Sometimes you see in your when you're doing payment or online things, you'll see your IP address is displayed. So all those things, your browser keeps track of it, or your Windows object is actually keeping track all these things, and this you can utilize it. You can understand from where this connection is coming. In your local, it won't matter because if you are running everything on your local server, it won't. Hello, is there a question? Uh, in your local server, you may not have all this information because local server will display just like a local server or maybe a IP which is local host. But if you're really programming outside your local server, if you are using it for regular applications, then the location object is very helpful. You have the navigation in different pages you can go, and it actually you can set up the values of the pages where you want to go, like href. You can actually control the properties of that. You can actually replace. For example, I want to direct you to a different page, and I can force that value into that navigation method. So there are a lot of things which you have. But one thing you need to remember when you use or replace, it is actually replacing the current page from the history stack. You won't find that page because it is actually replacing that. Let's see if we have an example. Okay. So one thing I always find interesting is the navigation. Like if you are using maps, you can use the longitude and latitude and find your coordinates. It's pretty good if you have a map application or if you're trying to use Google Maps. How Google Map is figuring it out is nothing but this is an API which it will find out. If you run this code, actually it will tell you where what is your current location of this. For example, if my laptop, if I run this one, it'll actually try to figure out what is this IP and where is this location by figuring it out. But location object always asks for your permission before actually going and trying to get that. It will ask you allow or deny. You can allow or you can deny permission. So you can run this and you can see what comes out. It's just a test page. The other interesting object is the image object. So a lot of pictures we manipulate on the web pages. When you go to websites, you will see randomly pictures coming in, or maybe there is a animation of that particular image going across and the other images coming through. A lot of animation you can do and the image manipulation. You can set the sizes, you can set the colors, a lot of styling properties you can do it. I don't suggest it, but its options are there. The one thing this is very widely used is if you are trying to create random pictures to pop up on the screen, like screensavers. If you're keeping a screensaver app on um, your web pages, you can actually create those kind of things, like screensavers, like you have a repeated or randomized pictures coming through. So that with the image object, you can actually do. So the Windows, the BOM, which is the browser object model, keeps track of all the images, whatever is shown on the screen, in an image collection. Again, collection is nothing but an array. So whatever images it will come across on the page, it is keeping track. So if I want to create an image and if I want to track different images on the pages, I can actually show and hide and show. You can you can actually bring them up by document.image 0, that is the index of that particular image, and you can replace that one with a different one. So It's very helpful. You can try it out. Again, all these things will fall under the document because that's Windows. If you go back to our model, so under the documents model, you have the form object, image object, and link object. So if you are using the document dot images, that's what you're controlling. If I say document dot forms, I'll be controlling the form object. If I say document dot links, I'm going to control the links of the document object. And here what we saw a little bit higher up, we saw the navigation screen object is another same thing. Like you can capture the screens. For example, some applications you want to scrape the screen and you can actually identify what is there on the screen and just capture. On laptops we do, or in the desktops we do the control print screen. What is nothing but it is you're capturing that particular image of the screen. So all those things are available for you to use it. So try out these things, couple of problems, not the code, and see how it comes. And I'll send you some classwork so that you can actually work through one or two problems for each category. Now, so we saw what is the browser object model. So whatever is the browsers, you have a lot of functionality, you can actually use it. Now, the next layer is the document model. Okay? Now, on a page, you got the document, that is the HTML. Within the window, you got the document. Now, everything on that particular document, we are going to go a little deep into that because HTML is a document object model. That we saw on the first page, there is a picture which I posted. I think there is one more in the next couple of slides down. So finding elements on the page. First thing is, if I have a document, assuming that this is my document, what are the different elements I have? For example, I have a number here. Maybe it is a page number. That's an element there. And this is a header. I have it a header, and I may have a footer here. So all these things on a HTML page, you can actually identify, and you can use the JavaScript to control those things. So you can update, you can have a different values, you can move them around, styling, all that you can use by using the DOM object. Okay? Navigation, styling, animation. Animation is another thing you can actually use. Now, why is it important? Because for developers, controlling all these things are very easy through JavaScript. So that is the reason I focus more on the DOM object. So because all I need to know is what properties I need to control. So I can figure it out. Okay, I need to do a styling, background, all that. If I don't have a CSS style sheet, I'm going to do that through JavaScripting, which again, we don't advise because styling should be separate than your logic. Uh, but you can actually control the entire web page using the DOM properties. As I said, that everything, there is no limit for it. Everything you can control. And again, DOMs are platform independent. Uh, but unfortunately, sometimes what we are seeing, especially in the cloud, I got so many questions. It runs on my local, but it's not running on the server. That's a different problem, but technically all the DOM objects are platform independent. It doesn't matter if you have a Safari browser, if you have Internet Explorer, you have a Google Chrome, they may customize a little bit, but the base of the core functions and the core methods will work on all the browsers. So this is think the DOM or HTML document because the DOM falls under the HTML page, whatever you have. The tags between HTML and close HTML tag, that's all your DOM. That's the entire thing. Think that as your DOM model. That's what you're trying to control. Anything between HTML tags. Now, there is a document root, which is the HTML tag. And under that, you have different elements. And elements will have attributes, which you can control. And elements can have multiple elements. It's like a parent and a child. And there is another thing called the text node. So if you think this as a tree, and we saw binary trees and each one is a node, this is unbalanced tree, so it's not a balanced tree. But if you go through it, there is a document node, there is an element node, and a text, and others are such them comments and other things. So these are the three different things. If you remember this thing, my document node, my element node, and the text node, I think it's pretty clear. Now, what is a document? It is a root, that is a HTML. That's where you start with. So anything, if I want to access this text, I can actually traverse through this path, document element dot or document dot, whatever this element body dot, this is my paragraph dot text. I can reach anywhere on my document. I can go through and I can travel. Now that's the element load. Any tag, this is the element. Any tag, for example, body is a tag, H2 is a tag, header tag, P is your paragraph tag. So anything I can actually traverse through. And a text node contains text of an element. Whatever the element's text, that is what it controls. Now, when we talk about nodes, as we are saying the nodes, there are few things you need to understand. This is a jargon, like these are the terminology. If you focus, I think that will help you. So there is a node name, contains the name of the node, which is always read only. You can't change the name of the node. Is a tag. The body is a tag. P is a tag. Uh, node is a hash document, which is in the document. You can actually go through document dot. Same way, node for text is hash text. You can do the hash and hash text. Those are the names for that particular node. The values are nothing but the contain the values of the node. Uh, each one, whatever the value you are trying to force in, if you are having a, if you say a P or the what do you call the paragraph node, then you have the value whatever that paragraph holds. That's the value of it. Now there is one more concept called node type. Node type tells you if it is an element, then the value is one. It's an indicator. Basically, if the value is one, that's a node type is an element, and the attribute is a two, and the text is comment is eight, and document is eight. These are just the values of that particular HTML elements. You can identify. If I say I have five elements, that means I have five values of node types one. And if I have attributes for each one, then the attribute node type is two. Again, all these things we don't use frequently because once you get into Java, all these things you can use it in the Java. You can actually do better things in Java, and you don't want to traverse through the DOM objects to find out what controls or what elements are there on the HTML pages. That's not uh, elegant way of doing. Uh, I don't suggest doing it, but just from a theoretical point of view, you need to understand the document has a tree structure. Anything between the HTML tag has a specific structure which you can access. Anything on that, you can actually access it. The two things like first child, last child, previous sibling, next sibling. Again, if you in algorithms, you must have learned all these things like traversing through the binary trees or the least traversing path. What is the immediate child, or what is the immediate node, and what is the three nodes down the current node. All those things are things which you can translate to JavaScript. Uh, the note here, uh, accessing HTML elements via node interface may not be too useful for practical. That's what I'm insisting. I think it is good to know how things work, but I won't suggest you to focus too much onto that concept and try to master that uh, DOM object, unless otherwise you are going to take a special interest and focus on the DOM models and improve them. Or you work in a place where, for example, Microsoft, if that is where you are working and Internet exposure, maybe that's where you need all that. But for regular projects and regular JavaScripting, we really don't go deep into that. So this is one example where you can actually see the node. I think yeah, this is the example you can see. So if I have a HTML, this is what if I type in, and this one, the output what you're seeing is nothing but this one. If I lay out all the elements and if I map them, and if I write a program, this is what I will get from that particular HTML page. Again, check what is the code. It is nothing but node.has child nodes. So there's a function. Every node has the method you can evoke. It will tell whether you have a child for that node or not. If that is true, then number of childs, whatever that node is, and varying from the length of that. This will generate an output like that. You can test it out. But it's interesting, and you can actually find out how many nodes are there on the HTML page. But again, we don't really use this way to find out, okay, what is the value of the particular. If I want to find the text value, there are different ways to do it in JavaScript. But again, it is good to know. A little more historical background of the DOM is the API, which is Application Program Interfacing. WC Consortium, it's the history, you can see it like level 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0 is obsolete. Nobody is using that anymore. But right now, again, some of the DOM objects are not approved by W3C. You can, there are better ways, again, as I said, that there's JavaScripting is there. We'll cover jQueries, which are much better in selecting and manipulating DOM objects. Like as I said, that you can actually change the values of every node or every value of the node, but not going by that program what I showed in the previous. But using the jQuery method, you can actually do much better job. So we'll go through that. We'll have one class on the jQueries I'll touch. In production, we will not approve this node notation, but jQueries are much better. So always make sure that I'm just keeping it here for your references. Now, from a DOM objects, the highest objects, the document, the different types you can have, document type, fragment. Few things we will use it. Very frequently used methods are, if you see here, the get element by ID. We use this very frequently. At least these four we use pretty frequently. This is to display your results, accessing the values, showing it on the screen. So we can actually use these methods to make your web page more reactive. There are a few things like get element by ID and by tags, elements by tag name, and query selector and query selector all. So let's quickly see what actually they do. The first one is get element by ID. As we saw, every element on the HTML page will have a unique value, unique ID. So to identify those things, we can actually use this method, get element by ID. If I define the ID, if I attach an ID to the element, then I can easily find out and change the values, change the settings, whatever I want, I can control it. Once I use that, then I have full control of that particular element. In this example, what we are doing is, I have H1, which is the header. For this H1, what I'm saying is, I'm going to identify this particular H1 with a unique ID called heading1. These IDs should be unique. If I have another h1, I can't have heading1. If I have it, then it will override whatever is the previous one. So for this heading, if I want to control this heading h1 or this value, I can change the value depending on, but to do that, I need to know what element or what node I'm going to touch. So that is the reason I assign for every HTML tag, I will assign an ID so that I can reference that, I can use it in my code, and I can control that through the JavaScript. So here for paragraph, I'm giving a different, you can give anything, it doesn't matter, but make sure that you remember what IDs you gave for those. So here what we are doing is under script, I'm doing the alert document dot get element by ID heading 1. So here what it is giving you will be the HTML tag h1, not the value. At this point, we are not getting the value. Just it is showing the reference uh, of that particular element or the ID what you recognize. So it is returning a reference to the h1 element. The reference h1 element is more useful. Like you can actually use it, and you can control. The whole idea of these methods are you should be able to control them and change the values, change the styling, and change the location. Sometimes if it is an image, you want to change the location of the image. For example, if you are creating a game where I need to press my randomly a picture is coming and I have to able to catch it, response time, how fast my eyes can respond. If you are creating some kind of apps for that for example, eye testing, you may see that when you see in the whatever the monitor, there may be things going around and they may ask you to actually tag them. So those things you can actually control by using get ID, element by ID. Try out and see what happens. Now, this is another example. I'm taking that into the h1 is a variable, h1 element equal to that one. So what I'm doing is my header, whatever is there, I'm going to paint that into red. So my style.color of the header, whatever is now my heading, should show technically in the red. If I take this and run it, that's what I should get it. Um, so this is a useful property, this by document get element by ID. But to do that, you need to make sure that you actually tag that element by a specific ID. Once you do that, then you have full control of that. Now there is one second one is get elements by tab name. Uh, it is actually now if you notice the second one is by tag. So what the other thing you should notice is here it is multiple things, elements by, in the previous one it is just an element. So the difference here and there is it's actually capturing a group of elements. So it is more than one. The way it is, you may have a collection of elements. All those things are now collected by using this get elements by tag name. So you will tag a name, for example, arrays. Arrays, you want to do it. That's how actually arrays work. You have a collection of elements, and each one is tagged by that. You can use the different notations. Either you can use that item uh, bracket, or you can use with a square bracket. It doesn't matter. You can see an example. Now here, what you're doing is get element by tag. Tag is your HTML tag, which is TD. TD is a table data. So now you are tagging anything with that particular TD, you are going to able to control it. In this example, you have a small table. There's nothing, one row one cell, one row, one cell two. But you are able to control that because you are saying that when you use the document.get elements by tag name, you're specifying what tag name I want to get it. So in this, the tag name is TD. Uh, you can have different tags, which, like for example, you have the lists, the ordered list and unordered list. You can put that one, say OL or OUL, and that will actually help you out to get that ordered list, and you can control them. Say dynamically you want to change the ordered list. If I press, maybe I give a small button on the screen, say change it to animals. Initially, maybe they're displaying birds. Now change it to animals or change it to different things. So you can actually control them by element 0 is the first one. In this, there's only one row and two cells, cell one, cell two, one row. So by tag, by any HTML tag, you can use it. If you have a collection, you can actually bring that and control it. In this one, um, I'm putting that into a PD variable, and I'm controlling the style with red. So the output should be like this because the element 0, the output I'm controlling with a red color. I think that is, I think it is red. As I said that I can't see much, but I'm assuming that is red or blue. You can change it and see how what happens. So if you have a table or a matrix, a two-dimensional matrix, you can actually control them using this method, document.get element by tag, td, and dot. I can say whatever element, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can do a lot of things with that. Now there is a second, the third one is query selector. So in query selector, what happens is you can you can have a name by which you are actually querying the entire document, and whatever the first instance of that, it is going to control. You can control that particular first instance. Um, Here, say I have a class equal to subtitle. This span is special. So there is two span elements here. But I want to control, I'm using the query selector. I want to control dot subtitle and the span. So when I say that the first span, when I use this one, what actually does, it is going through the entire paragraph and will find the first one. So between the span, whatever is there, that's actually going to get into the first span variable. So this is a good way to sometimes identify uh, elements on your screen. For example, one of the homeworks is wherever you find GSU, a word GSU or any two other words, you can actually color them into red. I think that's the thing. But we are not going to do in the homework one. This is not how you implemented it. I think you must have implemented span, and that you actually did it in the CSS, controlling that span. You're giving a color for the span. So wherever that span you have it, it's actually coloring it. But this is a very good method select, query select. You can use it. Um, Provided CSS selector. Let me see, I can see it. If you don't have that ID, again, you can actually go back and get by ID. It doesn't matter. You can get it by ID also. Like you can set this an ID, and then you can actually control that. There are multiple ways you can do it. Um, that's an example. You can use it. Now, query selector all. Okay. Now, here you get all the elements of the HTML. Say now I have dot subtitle span. everything. I want to correct everything. Now, in our example, we have two. In the previous example, if I take the same thing, I have two between the span. So now it will bring up these two things, special as well as some text. Okay. There are a few other methods like document, images, forms, links. Uh, but as I said, that there are better ways to do it than just doing it through the HTML DOM object. JavaScripting, once you are familiar with how do you use the script, then you can actually control all that. Let's see what else we have. Again, some of the examples I'm just throwing it out there. Uh, if you have a input text box by ID 4, these things, the same thing we saw by class. You can see the class name. That's what we used in the previous example. I saw the class name. These are examples you can see. But again, as I mentioned, I think it is good to know, but I don't want you to focus too much and write code using those things. The focus is on JavaScript and use the JavaScript to do a lot of heavy lifting and especially the business logic. Style sheeting, definitely not like this. You need to use your CSS so that it is flexible. You can port that CSS once you create it, you can actually keep it and you can use that CSS for different purpose. What is this? This is changing content of an element. Okay. Now we are seeing the inner HTML. I think till now we didn't come across that, but dot inner HTML actually will uh, try to change, or you can actually control that particular property. Going forward, you may not be using the display.write. With inner HTML, you have more control because you actually can control the element, what you want to do. If you see document.write is mostly text and the variables. You know? Now, the variables, you need to somehow define it and you are getting that value into that. But with the inner HTML, it has a much wider usage, but it's not a standard WC standard, but it's widely used, supported by a lot of browsers or most of the browsers, I can say. But document.write is a DOM object which is already there. It should be fine if you want to use that. Sometimes there is a document.ln which gives you an automatic line break, but some browsers they don't support it. So usually what I do is I do the document.write and plus I'll use the HTML tag BR, which is the blank row or the line, next line. It works fine for me. That's what I use if I need a line because document.write will work in all the browsers, but document.write ln sometimes works, sometimes won't. Now, attributes. You can control, as I said, that you have a lot of attributes, uh, like element name, that attribute name, get attributes. You can try all these things, but as I said, that a lot of things you don't do this way, especially node.align. This is, yeah, it is good to know. If nothing works, maybe we can use it, but usually this is not how you do it. Okay? This document ln, as I said, that inner HTML, you can actually display it. With that inner HTML, you can change the values. So it is more versatile than document.write. Write is just writing it out. Now, the interesting thing is the animation. Like the HTML pages, what we see nowadays is full of animation. Things going across, uh, randomly popping up, or you may have some scroll bar. For example, most of the screens when you go to HTML, a banner comes across the page. So those things I think is good to know how to do it. Here is an example. Right? This Yeah, this is the most creative scripting. I don't really use it because, yes, if you are creating web pages, I think that's very good. All couple of things you need is a starting state, the movement towards the final goal. There are three things, isn't it? All you need is three things. The end state, starting the animation. Once you know the three things, once you can position and control them, I think animation can be done. The way animation is done is, for example, if you see concept wise, say there is an array. I have 10 elements in the array. I start with the array, the element one. Say I put an alphabet there, or a letter or a picture. Take that and put it in the cell 2 and put another image on cell 1, say blank image. So from a visualization point of view, you feel that as if it moved from cell 1 to cell 2. So the same concept you can use in HTML animation. There are a few methods you can actually do that. Um, this is a quick example. The script goes here. The script block is here. I didn't have place. That's the reason I said. So if you do is a function do animation. It has div advert document get. So here you are getting, because that is whatever is there, dev advert, here is an advertisement. So what I'm trying to do here in this, if I remember it, I want this, here is an advertisement. I want it to go across the page. Across is, I'm setting up boundary conditions, start to end. I think it is, okay, here it is, 400 pixels from start 0 to 400. I want to move and move by 2 pixels. Okay? New location is 2 pixel. I think this is where new location plus 2, current plus 2. That's what I'm there. If you are in 2, then jump to, so that you will actually go through it, and you will see that like a nicely animated advertisement going across. If I have an example on the laptop, I'll show it. We can try this and see how. This is a cool thing. Like I like animations, but again, once you do it, you have it. You don't need to learn too much about that. It doesn't matter whether it's just a line or if it's a picture. You can do the same thing once you know the concept. The concept is, it is the current. You are going to the new one. New location is whatever is the current minus 2, or the different directions. Like you can go back and forth because you want to come back also. It's not just one direction. You want to come back. If it touches 400, then I need to decrement and go back to 0. And if again, when I hit to 0, again, I need to increment to 400. That's what one of these examples. Maybe let's see this example. I think this will be interesting. Again, references, I'm giving it there. Let's see if I can find that particular. Oh, okay. Yes. Dot. Okay, I changed. I think. Let's see the code. Okay, I put my name here, so that's the reason it's going across. Otherwise, I can say, I can change here. Go back to the code. Let's change something else. reload. So it's fun and its code is pretty straightforward. It's not complicated. If you know the concept, I think the whole concept is how do you move it. For example, let me end a little bit. This is the function animation. So which direction is false initially. So this function do animation, document adverb. This is by ID. Now I'm going to go back and see, okay, that is what it is. So whatever is that is put into uh, the variable. Current left is offset. There is an offset property. You can take a look at it. The div has an offset property. Um, Offset left, offset right. Um, so using that, I'm actually bringing up the animation. Again, +2 going forward, -2 coming back. The direction is shifted and it is coming back. Um, it's something nice to try it out, and you can have it on your web pages. Let's try. Let's do 800 and what happens. So it is double the page with digest. Sometimes you can actually change it, like you can bring it instead of just in a straight line, you can actually randomly go around. Um, yeah, you can be creative in that. Um, with that, if you have any questions at this point, let me go back and see chats I have.
Hello, Professor.
Okay.
Had a question. Yeah, my car server was working, but I noticed when I uh, use the JavaScript on my pages, the JavaScript doesn't play on the card server.
Which one won't play?
Uh, like class work number 6, like the first
Okay.
problem, I did that one and I loaded that one on the card server. I don't see any.
Can you
I can see.
can you show me the page, or can you show me the, let me stop sharing. Do you want to share your screen and show me the page?
Oh yeah, I can do that.
I'll try to see it. If we can resolve, we can do it. But is it working on your local?
I don't see it's not on my local.
It's not working on your local either.
Oh,
And what is this problem?
yeah, I highlight the job. I can't see the job. I can't see the functionality running on the page.
Okay, which classwork is this?
Classwork number 6. Yeah, problem. The first exercise.
Which is the latest one, isn't it? The Fibonacci series.
Yeah, I can show you what I got. Like this. You can take that link right there, the link right there. Like when I put that into my browser right there, I get a right page.
One sec. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh yeah, I can, let me see. Share content. Oh yeah, can you see my screen now?
Okay, go on.
See, I
And,
have just a white page. That's all you see.
okay. Uh, right click on the page and the source.
And that's my source right there.
Yeah. That prompt into number. Usually I do go I
And
plus
then,
plus. That's
and
fine.
then I made a change to my body tag. I put a onload attribute in my body tag to see if that would load it. Yeah, but that didn't work neither.
Can you send the code? Let me put it on the card server and see what happens. And on the
Uh,
local, is it working
well,
on the
yeah,
local or no?
working in the local, but this is in the cloud server.
Okay, I can go to that. Send me the link at least so that I can
Okay, I just sent you the
send
link.
me an email. So, yeah, so that's fine. Um, function number. Wait a minute. Open the script variable the function. Calling it from the function itself. Function number. What is the number here? What is the value of the number?
Value, hang up here, the user puts in, gives you the value of number, and
From where?
then
Where is that number coming?
yeah, it's coming from the user. There's a render that
It's,
there's a display that'll pop up, and you will type in the
yeah.
number.
Yeah, but it is not this value prompt enter a number is going into the display, but
Uh,
that is different. This is blank, isn't it? Here it is blank. Where is just number? There is nothing in this. You need to initialize just with a couple of numbers. Like for example, 10 numbers. I want to do it. Here it is not coming. There is no way this is getting any value here. You see my question, like for example, where are you initializing this number? There is nowhere.
I got a number underneath the document, right?
Yeah, but what number? What is that? It is just a declaration, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a
It is just
declaration.
declaring.
And then
Yeah, it is
if you look,
declaring. It should have a value. Number should be like a 10 or a 5 or a 15. Somewhere you need to set that value.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
try it out and see if that works. It should, because I tried the Fibonacci before giving to you guys. I usually do that. Um, I think I should have something running right now. Let me see if it, any other questions, guys? So this afternoon, actually, I sent uh, the folder structure. I don't know how many of you saw that. Hopefully, saw the folder structure. Let me open the folder structure PowerPoint file. Okay, I think hopefully everybody saw this slide. Most of the questions I get is, how do I access my page? So the way I'm setting up is your card structure, which is your student directory. The student directory up to the public HTML, you your directory is up to public HTML. So if I want to say HTTP and student name, and anything after that is actually your folder structure. So in this, I'm creating a WP, which is the whatever you want to web programming. Under web programming folder, I'm creating three folders: classwork, homework, and your project work. Now under classwork, I'm creating a subfolder 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on what classwork I'm doing. And under that particular folder, I'm placing all my files under that particular one. So if I'm doing classwork 6, all my files will be under classwork 6, assuming that this is 6. Everything, whatever is needed, will have it here. So the idea is you will create a index.html page. That is the main page where you will provide the link. And from that index.html, if I have in classwork 6, I have three problems. So you can have links for from index.html. First link is problem 1, second link is problem 2, third link is problem 3. You can reference different HTML pages in that order. So all you need is just one single entry, and you will provide that to your TAs or to me. Say this is example for classwork 1. If you are doing classwork 6, all you are providing is this particular path. So when I go there, now I will see a list of different problems, the links, and I can click on each link and I can verify it. Make sense? Try to try to organize your work now. It's not too late. Now we got most of us, we got the card server access. How do you go there and how do you present that? That is how it is. Say if I have a, let me, my public HTML as WC. I have different folders, but forget about that. So under work, I have a folder 1, which is for first class. That's it. Now I can create directory. So if I'm doing a classwork 6, I'm just going to create a 6 directory, enter. Now anything, all I want is index.html here, assuming that I don't have index.html or I have only one file. Right now, let me see, say this is my file. Okay. So CW6 underscore 1, remember that. And this is under W CW1. Let's try that. That's it. See, this is your user ID, tilde and user ID. So when you do that, you are already in your public HTML folder. Under that, I have a programming class, classwork, CW. And again, it is case sensitive to make sure that we type in exactly what comes on it. So number 1, number 6, we are doing number 6. I dropped in. Now my file is CW6 underscore 1.html. So this is my Fibonacci series sequence. So you can actually do that. So go through that slide and see whether that makes sense or not. If you have any questions, let me know, but I think this is what your TAs are expecting. Once you have the card server access, go through this path, and this is how exactly what you need to do. All you need to give, if I'm giving this for 6, all I need to give is that path. So this is my one file I'm giving. So I can create an index.html and I can paste this as a link. So when I click it, it opens up that page. Okay. Any other questions? So this is a simple HTML, I don't know what you call HTML page with Fibonacci function. You can create this as a function, but just like create it as a normal HTML page with script. Okay. Any questions for me? Let's quickly see the chat. There's this one. Let's check that. Any chat we have? Okay. Terence, you send me the link, but I think check the function how you're calling. I think that's maybe the issue. Okay. Then again, do you have any questions before we can break? Any questions on classwork 6? It's pretty straightforward. I think you should be able to do it in like maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, or maybe 1 hour. Okay. Thank you very much. One thing I want to, anyway, you guys are here, so one announcement is my office times. I think I'm going to change it. I think I'm going to give more time for you. Tuesdays, Thursdays, noon time, like between 12 and 1, I'll open the meeting. And if you want to join and if you have any questions, you can ask me. I'll publish it on an announcement so that everybody will be aware of it. So class times and stuff in the evenings, it's tough for me. It's not happening. I'm responding to all your emails as soon as possible, but I think having a live meeting so that you can stop by and ask me questions, I think it may help you a lot. So during the lunchtime, I'll open the meetings, Tuesdays, Friday, Thursdays, and if you need some time really, put me an email, give me a day so that I can take a couple of hours from the work and I can open the meeting for you guys. Okay. If you don't have any questions, stay safe. And we have Monday class. Like Friday is a holiday. Monday I'm going to post something. If I don't have a live meeting, I will just post it. You can watch the video and audio. The next Java part 4. How do we control forms? Like if you have data input from the screens, how do I take that and how do I actually start working with that forms? Because that will slowly transition into your database connectivity. Once I create the form, all the data values are taken. Now there are actions which we'll deal in the next class. The get and post methods, which we briefly saw in the HTML part 2, but JavaScript, we are actually going to use it and take that values, and the next stage is pass through the database and do the database connectivity, database activity. So the next part will be your the form. How do you manage the form with JavaScript, the variables, the data elements, how do you pass back and forth? So the next class we'll talk about the next one, action elements of JavaScript. But before that, make sure that you understand the functions. You should be able to understand the loops, while, and how do you initialize the variables, manipulation, string manipulators, date and time, I'll quickly send you a PowerPoint on the math libraries. There are a lot of math libraries are available. You can use all the math functions. One thing is the random, math.random will give you a random number, which is very helpful to use in your applications. Okay. Uh, Let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email. I'm here. I'll check my emails and I'll respond to you guys. Otherwise, stay safe and have a happy and healthy July 4th weekend. Good night.